Time for another board recap podcast. Dr. Smith, how are you today?
Good. Hard to believe that we only have 3 board meetings left until graduation.
That really is hard to believe. And a lot of people I talk to, I mean, they've commented lately saying, it seems like these were parents saying it seems
Right.
like we just started the school year and now here we are thinking about spring break. And we
Yeah.
all know after spring break, boy, it really
Yeah.
goes quickly then.
Certainly agree with our parents. I don't know where this year has gone, but man, it's
Definitely.
it's flying by.
Definitely. And month of March is here, and we have one school board meeting in the month of March, and that always results in a slightly longer agenda. So if you wonder how we set up meetings between twice a month and once in a while, once a month, you can tell because last night we did
Yeah.
have a few additional agenda items just because of that extra gap in time. So let's take a look at that if
Yeah,
you
and,
want.
probably would be a great topic when we have a little bit shorter,
Sure.
board agenda just to go through everything that happens in order to get an item ready for the school board.
Yeah, because it doesn't just magically appear. There is a lot of work that
Right.
goes into that. So yeah, let's touch base on that in a soon to be released
Yeah.
podcast because I think it is interesting. A lot of work by a lot of people involved. We don't just
You
have
bet.
these for the fun of it. I mean, there is a lot of work to be accomplished in board
Absolutely.
meetings. Well, let's start with good news from last night. Always plenty of that to go around, and we've talked recently in the last 4 to 6 weeks about all of the really nice Black History Month assemblies taking place in our schools. GLA Glenwood Leadership Academy had one recently, and this was extra special because Mayor Stephanie Terry, who has already proven to be a great friend to our schools, been in a lot of them, she was actually honored at that assembly by being inducted into the GLA Hall of Fame because she went to school there as a middle school student. And so that was really nice to see.
It was, and it was also amazing. I sat just one row behind her to see the students come up and walk past her.
Celebrity status almost.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but what a
Absolutely.
great way to inspire the
Yep.
kids because if you're looking at the video of this, or if you're listening, we can tell you about it. They actually have a Hall of Fame board in their main hallway, and her picture is now up, and that serves as a great inspiration to our students.
Certainly does.
So yeah,
Certainly does.
appreciate everything Mayor Terry is doing for our students. Also, then last night we lifted USI held a Be a Teacher Day, and we all know what important work that is to encourage people now to consider getting into education as they get older, our current students. And so we had a lot of our students get to go out to USI and participate in that. And again, we were always looking for people who are looking to be educators in their future because we know what a difference they'll make.
Absolutely.
Another thing we talked about last night is we've released 2 podcasts recently. So if you haven't checked those out, those are on social media as well as on all your favorite podcast channels where you typically listen to those for EVSC. We talked about kindergarten enrollment because 'tis the season. So we talked about that with one of our elementary principals, Lisa Shanks, and one of our kindergarten teachers at McCutcheonville, Mindy Matthews. So we encourage you to hear that if you'd like to hear more about kindergarten. And then we also did a podcast where we talked to 2 students that you and I have mentioned before, and that is Jacob Barnwell and Eli Duff from New Tech. And they told us all about their project where they won the Changemaker Challenge. So definitely a couple of podcasts with some interesting topics.
You bet. And quite an accomplishment for those students from New
Oh,
Tech.
and again, if you missed it, they won full ride scholarships. That is quite an accomplishment.
Yes, it is.
We also lifted the fact that we recently had our high school honors concert. This was at the beautiful Victory Theater in downtown Evansville, and this was our high school orchestra, band, and choir students who are in honors. And I know you got to work with them. You actually conducted a piece, and I am sure you felt there was no shortage of talent on that stage that night.
Tell you, it certainly is a point of pride, I think, for our entire community. I can't think of another school district that has those kinds of opportunities for students. It truly is an honors program. And invariably, every year, people come up to me and say, there's no way those can be high school students. But I think it just goes to show you have high expectations, high levels of support, incredible things can occur. So, quite a community treasure in our
Sure.
EVSC honors programs, and also specifically that night, the high school honors band, orchestra, and choir. There are not hardly any string programs in this region either. So to have a full orchestra on stage with high school students to play that caliber of music, the full orchestra number was from Gustav Holst, the Mars part of the planet's composition that he wrote. Incredibly difficult, but they pulled it off.
Well, and as the conductor of that piece, I know you enjoyed that opportunity, but you understand firsthand that that was not a simple piece, I would say, for those
No,
students.
and, those groups are just emblematic of everything that we say that we need in our students and in our future employees. So our employers should feel great about the individuals that are coming out of
Absolutely.
EVSC.
Absolutely. So kudos to those fine musicians. Speaking of kudos, we had a couple of our high school basketball teams. It's also the season now for postseason for boys basketball. We talked recently about girls basketball, and now moving over to the boys side of things. We had two sectional champions this year. Harrison High School was the 4A sectional champion, and Bossy High School was the sectional champion in 3A. So congratulations to both of those schools. And then, drum roll, please, we move into the fact that then last weekend, Bossy High School then pulled out a victory and won the 3A regional. Harrison, great team, great season, came up
Yes.
just a little bit short in a phenomenal basketball game. But boy, Bossy put it together and won, and now they're off to semi state. How
Yeah.
exciting is that?
And the great thing about the Summer State last Saturday or regional last Saturday, both teams played very well, played very hard. I think all of the Evansville community can be very pleased with how those teams performed. And yeah, Harrison just came up a bit short, but man, they played an incredible game and just great season for all of our basketball
And,
teams.
I lifted last night too, and I just thought this was extra special with this. Shows you about our Evansville community. Both of these games took place in the regional that was held in Huntingburg, Indiana. Harrison actually got their fan base got there early so they could support Bossy in their game because Bossy played prior to them. And then I know a lot of folks from Bossy were able to stick around and cheer on the
Yeah.
Harrison Warriors. So during the regular season, they are competing against each other, two really proud basketball traditions. But boy, in the postseason, they were supportive of each
Yeah,
other, and that's just
right.
nice to see.
You bet they were there to support one another, and it provided a great atmosphere for high school basketball.
Absolutely. And then last thing we'll throw in, this just happened yesterday at the end of the day. I know I always say this, one of your favorite things, got to be a
You
part
bet.
of Cause for Applause, our cafeteria manager at Helfrich Park
Yeah.
STEM Academy.
Jennifer Shelton, and my gosh, I would encourage every listener to go to the Facebook page,
See those pictures. Yeah,
certainly of EVSC, or you can go to the EVSC Food and Nutrition
that's true too.
webpage or go there on Facebook. Uh, wow. The things that she and her team do for our kids at Halfrey Park are phenomenal.
And boy, you could tell everybody in that school, including middle school students, really had
That's right.
just such great feelings about it.
Yeah, and why don't you share with the audience the comment that you made to me?
Well, we were standing around waiting to take some pictures afterwards, and all these middle school students were coming up to hug her. Now, you and I both have middle school backgrounds,
Yes, we do.
and we know that middle school students just don't typically dish out hugs like elementary students do. But
That's
boy,
right.
they did that
Yeah,
because she makes a difference in
yeah.
their school life.
And once again, when she was introduced as a Cause for Applause recipient, when you could see the smiles on the faces of the
Mhm.
students and the staff as well, that's when you know you've got it right.
Absolutely. So that really was a great event. So that takes care of good news. Always love going through that. And if you would, Dr. Smith, take us through last night's consent items,
You
please.
bet. So item 3.02, consideration allowance of payments. This time it was $18,591,838.32. Invoices of 2.5 million. We had contract bus driver payments, cafeteria expenses of nearly 870,000. We had two payrolls this time around because it was a 3-week span of time. That net payroll was 9.2 million, and then the payroll obligations on top of the net payroll was another 5.5 million. So that's how all of that 18 point nearly $6 million was expended over that last 3-week period of time. Moving on to 3.03, consideration approved change order number 1 for the New Tech Institute renovations project of 2023. So this was a little bit more extensive change order. Some of this came about because of the area plan commission adjusting the parking lot that we put in, and then AV equipment I think was the other big ticket. And then we had some additional restroom work. So typically we don't have a change order that size, but it was, I think, really due to, once again, things outside of our control, which is typically what a change order is. Item 3.04, consideration to approve early literacy supplemental payments. I think this is a huge win for our folks because we are able to pay uh, for our folks that are dealing with early literacy in grades K through 3 or teachers through the Indiana Department of Education early literacy grant supplemental payment. I think it was $608 for every teacher that teaches grade K through 3
Believe you're right
that
about that,
works
yes.
with our kiddos in early literacy. So, very pleased to be able to do that. And naturally, when we receive those funds in, then we need authority and approval from the board in order to spend those monies. Item 3.05, consideration to approve the Board of School Trustees per diem rate for meetings. So this rate has remained unchanged since 2005. Let me say that once
Right.
again.
You're talking a
for
long span of
for
time there.
20 years. So the rate went from $112 for a meeting up to $150 per meeting, and then for specialty called meetings, from $62 went up to $75. What is fascinating about this is that this is based upon, uh, and it says in the verbiage that they have to be adopted by the Board of School Commissioners for IPS. So we can't have those per diem rates any higher than what IPS
Which, of
provides.
course, is in Indianapolis.
Yes, so that's probably why it hasn't been increased for nearly 20 years. And I think anybody within listening of this podcast would understand to not receive an increase in 20 years probably is a fairly long period of
That is,
time.
yes, exactly.
Yes,
Glad we were able to get that accomplished.
yes. Item 3.06, consideration to approve the agreement with 10 Adams. So 10 Adams has been a great partner with EVSC and bringing to life our GAIN approach to education. So GAIN, which is growth in academics through innovation in our education, is really our framework through which we view all of our decisions, and it's based upon whole child development, specifically how the brain functions and how students learn.
I think that last part is the key part. It's knowing how kids learn, how
Right.
students learn the best.
Yes, and you would think that that is just an automatic in everything that's done in
Hasn't always
education.
necessarily been connected with the world of education.
No, and when you think about the field of neuroscience, neuroeducation, which is a relatively new field, brought about really by neuroimaging, so we now have brain scans, visible evidence of how the brain is activated when certain stimulus hits the brain. So we can now use that information to tailor our pedagogical practices. And I think that is just a revolutionary change in the world of education. So many of our practices in education have evolved from practices that were developed 100 years ago.
Right, in a very different time with different
Right.
resources, different tech obviously, maybe technology, maybe not, so
Yeah, so I'm really thrilled with the work that 10 Adams has done so far. This is the second um, phase of that work, and they're going to bring to life, really in a usable format, all of the information pertaining to GAIN so that our teachers will be able to help our students at an even higher level using
absolutely.
that understanding and using that framework.
Yeah, Ten Adams, definitely a respected community partner here. They've done a lot of work here in this area for a long time, so appreciate
Yes.
their expertise.
Item 3.07, consideration to approve the academic evaluator agreement. So, um, if there are any school psychologists out there that would like a job, come on over.
Yes,
I
definitely,
think we're down one.
and they play a very important role.
Very, very important role. So we have some evaluations, some assessments that we have to make certain are done in a timely manner. So we are bringing back an individual that had retired from us, and she's agreed to do some additional work to get us through the end of the school year. Item 3.08, consideration to approve the petition to the Indiana Department of Education for the Common School Fund Loan. So, if the department provides access to the Common School Fund Loan, then the board has now given permission to go ahead and write for that grant. We use that grant for technology, so we would use it to enhance current classroom technology, student devices, network infrastructure, digital resources, things of that nature. Item 3.09, consideration to approve the resolution for conditional hiring of employees. So this is somewhat unusual in one sense, but it's common and ordinary in another. The board has been very gracious in allowing us to do this uh, immediately preceding the start of school. But basically, what this is, in a simple phrase, is once an employee completes everything and the background checks come back, then we still have to wait for the next board meeting for the board to approve them.
And
So,
you always touch on that briefly. We always talk about, in fact, our next section, personnel recommendations. That's
right,
where the board goes through and approves for example, new hires.
Right. So what the board is allowing us to do now is once all of that comes back, once the background check comes back and they've been approved, we no longer have to wait for the board to take official action before that individual knows that they have a job.
And I think this will be appreciated too by individuals that are hiring on with us because obviously they've gone through the interview process. They've done everything they need to do. They've been selected by the school. They'd like to know that they're going to be offered a position.
Right. Item 3.10, consideration to approve the transfer of funds from the CPF emergency fund account to the Wrights High School construction account. So we have two elevators at Wrights. We have one that's a 3-floor elevator and one that's a 5-floor elevator. The 5-floor elevator is starting to be somewhat temperamental. So we have secured the services of an elevator company that will come in, it's Oracle, and they will modernize the hydraulic system in that elevator so that it operates flawlessly. And that was not something that really one could anticipate because we've done the regular maintenance on it. It just is at a point in time where it now needs something more and has become temperamental. And the last thing you want in an elevator is for it to be
Agree
temperamental.
with that. And some people listening may not realize that your alma mater, Wrights High School, has 5 floors in certain areas of
Yes,
it.
that's when I was in better shape. Item 3.11, consideration to approve early childhood instructional assistant salary schedules. Once again, incredibly pleased to be able to offer this. This is coming about actually because we do have some additional funding for early childhood programs, but also the early childhood instructional assistants have to possess that child development associate degree as well as they have to have 20 hours of professional development annually. So basically, what we've done is we have added another salary schedule for our instructional assistants, and we're pleased to be able to offer this. They do great work, as do all of our assistants. This is just acknowledgement that the requirements for them is up a level
Right.
beyond what our other classroom assistants have to have.
And it couldn't agree with you more. Boy, instructional assistants really make a tremendous difference in our schools. We appreciate everything they do for our students.
You bet. Item 312, consideration to approve the letter of understanding with Teamsters Local 215 and the updated salary schedules for special ed paraprofessionals. So, because of the board approving item 3.11, the special ed paraprofessionals are represented by Teamsters 215. So, we were pleased to be able to have them sign this letter of understanding. To where the employees they are the individuals they represent and the employees that we have benefit from that collaboration. Item 3.13, consideration to approve the memorandum of understanding with the Evansville Teachers Association and retention stipend payments for September of 2024. So this is a $3,000 retention stipend for teachers that teach in our priority schools, our Title I schools. And it's just an acknowledgement that while all teachers have a lot of work to do, teaching in a Title I school can many times carry sometimes an additional emotional stressor and other things just because of everything that teachers are required to do in those buildings. So this is an acknowledgement of that as well as an opportunity when they come back in those schools. Here's our appreciation, a $3,000 retention bonus.
Yeah, glad we could come to an agreement on that because very well deserved. And for all those teachers, we certainly appreciate everything they do in those buildings.
Yes. Item 4.01, as we always say, those personnel recommendations are presented for your perusal. And then item 5.01, as we go into action items, these were presented in the previous board meeting. They remain unchanged. Item 5.01, consideration to award the contract for the wide area network, the WAN. So that is the bit of technology that allows our schools to converse in between our schools. So that was approved last night. Item 5.02, consideration to award the network infrastructure upgrade bid. So this is another component of this. So this really was kind of two parts. One was the hardware that went to CDW, and then the vendor that got the network cabling was RTI. And then item 3.05, consideration to award the contract for internet access. So yet another component of all of our wireless and internet access. So the vendor that was successful in this bid was Spectrum.
As we said the last time, all these first 3 items all dealing with that technology, that connectivity infrastructure that's kind of hidden
Right.
behind the scenes, but boy, is it ever important.
It's extremely important, and it actually the internet and wireless is And I say this, I'm perhaps dating myself a bit, but I started teaching before we even knew what the internet was. And now, just to think about over 40 plus career, that span of time, now internet and wireless access, that's just like the air you breathe. You just expect it to be there. It's like electricity. You expect to turn a light switch on and for it to automatically be there. That doesn't just happen.
No,
It takes a lot of people behind the scenes, and you have to always remain uh, constantly vigilant to make certain that you have all of the hardware, software, and wiring to make certain that it operates as people have come to expect.
in a secure environment.
Right. Item 5.04, consideration to award the contract for the 2024 Stockwell Elementary School Playground Project. So, once again, and I may be dating myself, but I remember when we would install new playground systems, installation, and the equipment for about $60,000. So, last night, the board awarded the contract to Rivertown Construction in the amount of $284,690 to install the playground equipment, which cost us about $120,000 to purchase. So,
It's
yeah,
expensive.
it is
But
expensive.
I will say too, and I think I said this last time, Dr. Smith, kudos to you, Steve Scheller, our head of facilities, our facilities department, because as a school corporation now, we've taken on this work for several years to make sure that every school over the course of time we're replacing these playgrounds, because there was a time in the distant past where it was kind of left up to schools and fundraisers and things like
Right.
that. And as you said, with this cost, that is just it makes that out of the realm of possibilities. And these are state of the art. They are safe. They are all inclusive. So I think it's a great project that we're able to do for our elementary schools, because this is a vital part of the school day for students having that playtime.
Right. And every student can participate on those
Absolutely,
playgrounds.
in
They
a
certainly
safe
have
manner.
sensory equipment, so it mimics drums, and other sounds, and folks that perhaps are wheelchair bound still can be out there and be active.
Yes, for sure.
A vast improvement.
Definitely.
Moving on to item 5.05, consideration award the contract for the Wrights High School Band Lot Paving Project of 2024. Um, and this was awarded to Arc Construction, and basically this is the old driver Ed lot, which is off of Barker Avenue, down the hill, the big hill from Wrights, and it really is necessary because that driver Ed lot was never meant to have semi traffic driven on it. And you might ask, okay, why are we driving semis on it? And that's because marching bands of today travel with a lot of equipment, their
Yes.
uniforms, props, everything. So
Most
I
of
know
them
when I
have full
was,
semi trailers now.
yeah, I remember when I was band and orchestra director at Wrights, we traveled with two semis. And those semis now are driven on that lot and parked there to make certain that they're secure. So what this will do is it will put in a good firm base. We'll have lime stabilization, then put a new top on it, and it will be a good, safe surface for our students. I know that surface really has remained unchanged for more than 40 years. So this is certainly a long time coming, but certainly sorely
Yes,
needed.
definitely.
Item 5.06, consideration award the contract for Oak Hill Elementary School parking lot paving project of 2024. So this too will go to Art Construction. So this is doing a lot of work on the parking lot at Oak Hill, as well as also expanding the parking lot that they have. Item 5.07, consideration to adopt the ISBA Policy 2800 unmanned aircraft systems. I think that's kind of a fancy name for a drone. Uh, Many listeners may not be aware that in order to fly a drone, you need to actually have your pilot's license for that. So we have a drone pilot. Our insurance requires that, and we just want to make certain that anyone that would think about flying a drone around our facilities, especially with anyone present, would understand that they have to have permission in order to do that, because it can uh, end up in an environment that's not safe if you're thinking about a sporting event or graduation.
Absolutely.
So there's a good reason why that is done. So the next items, 5.08 to 5.12, are all the final part of a bonding process. So going back to, I believe it was January 22nd's board meeting where we started this process, and it was the preliminary hearing, preliminary determination hearing, where we presented this information to the public, provide the opportunity for the public to provide their opinion. So this is now asking for the permission to spend the bond proceeds. That's why it is called the hearing on additional appropriation. Appropriation meaning you have to have permission to spend funds.
Yeah, this has really been a great example of all the legal steps that are in place that we have followed to a T ever since, as you said, January for this.
Correct. So 5.08 and 5.10 were both a public hearing for the additional appropriation for Bosse High School as well as Wrights High School. And then 5.09 and 5.011, after 8 and 10 were approved, then we had the resolution that was approved for that additional appropriation. And finally, it culminated in 5.12, consideration adopt the bond resolution for the 2024A general obligation Bosse and Wrights High School project. And really, what this did was uh, this is basically to get approval on the final bond resolution and all of the documents associated with that. Then moving on to item 6.01, consideration award the contract for the 2024 Bosse High School Stadium roofing project. So all of that was undertaken, and many of the things that we're talking about now are construction projects that will occur in the summertime. Well, in order for us to be ready to go in the summertime, this work has to begin actually when school starts, because it is that long of a process to get all of the architectural documents, the bid specs together, to get it out to the construction folks, then to get the bid tabs back, to analyze the bid tabs, and then to get it to the board for information, and then to get it on the board for action items. So then the contractors can order the materials so that when school is out, they can start that very next day.
Yeah, and these summer projects, you're right. I like the way you laid that out because it is extremely important that we are able to get these done during that period of time when students are not in the building as they are during the regular school year. So you
Right.
can't run behind on this, or all of a sudden you run in a situation where you're trying to do work and students are present. We don't want that. So
Absolutely.
it takes a lot of dedicated planning.
So 6.01 was for the roof Bosse High School Stadium, also known as Inlow Field. And so the recommendation in the April 9th board meeting will be for Midwest Roofing and Insulation Company. Item 6.02, consideration award the contract for the Bosse High School turf project. Once again, that's Inlow Field for the new turf there. And that will be, the recommendation will be for Art Construction. Item 6.03, consideration award the contract for the Cedar Hall Community School classroom and corridor remodel project of 2024. So this is the second and final phase of bringing those things up to speed and making certain that those are all in great shape. Item 6.04, consideration adopt policy 6225 for the employee job related expenses for travel and reimbursement. So this kind of streamlines what we currently have, certainly based upon the Indiana School Board Association legal counsel's recommendation. And it actually replaces 4 policies that we currently have. And then finally, for information, consideration approve the curriculum resources for the 24-25 school year. And I tell you, there is a ton of work that goes into this also.
Absolutely. Yes.
This is a 3-page document of resources that we are currently using. And, we've done a lot of research, and it is quite evident that access to high quality research is a tremendous driver in student success.
And I would encourage you to click on the attachment here because you can see everything spelled out that you're talking about.
Yeah. And in fact, in the research we've done, access to high quality instructional materials can improve student learning incomes and actually can have a larger impact on student achievement than just about any other school improvement intervention, and oftentimes cost far less. So that's the importance of having high quality curricular resources in every classroom.
Well, and it just speaks to the success of putting this in place when you have people who are truly experts doing the research, getting the information, talking to individuals, getting feedback. I mean, we don't put these in place without a lot of thought and a lot of planning because we know, as you said, it's going to make a big
Right.
difference in student learning and student outcomes.
And a lot of collaboration. And actually, to your point, Jason, this is work that we should never expect schools to undertake on their own. That's why we have expertise here, and we also value the influence and the thoughts of what I call the boots on the ground, the teachers that do
Sure.
such a great job each and every day. But we do a lot of the upfront work,
We owe that to our
provide things
teachers.
to them, solicit their thoughts, and we arrive at good decisions in that process.
And then we look forward to once these are implemented to see how that moves forward with, as you said, student learning, because that's at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to accomplish here.
That's right.
And I think now you can take a breath, Dr. Smith. This was
Okay.
a or to get a drink of water or whatever you choose to do, because this was a long agenda. Again, we had 3 weeks between meetings. So when you have that, oftentimes you'll see more items on this
Right.
agenda, but got a lot of things accomplished in last night's meeting. So we appreciate you taking
You
the
bet.
time to go through it all.
My pleasure. It was a great meeting. So uh, appreciate your help with all of that.
All right. Thank you.